I'd love a little bit of a background on how things have evolved and shifted, especially within terms of like the role that you play at TNT Sports, um, and on a going forward basis, where your focus is.
My role has shifted quite a bit throughout my time at Bleacher Report and TNT Sports. Started off on the sales side, moved into strategy role, working with Luis Silberwasser, and now I'm back on the sales side. And I think while all the roles have been very different and challenging in different ways, I would say the common thread throughout all of them is how do we balance sort of engagement of fandom and user experience with monetization in its sort of most robust form.
Yeah.
And I think like my specialty inside of that is that A, I don't mind sort of the natural brush up between revenue and content. And B, I don't believe one can exist without the other.
Yeah.
And so finding that balance is super critical to have a brand that succeeds over time. And we've found that.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting challenge. I remember, we worked with Bleacher Report, and when the relaunch happened of the platform, obviously it's a community led platform, so you can hear user feedback instantaneously, and it's never easy to shift from a community first platform to then now trying to balance monetization as well, and
Yeah,
how do you engage users with that in mind?
exactly. I think you're right. Listen, there's good and bad that comes with being a community led and having that constant feedback loop. And I think brands that do it well, Bleacher among them, is we are listening to our fans and we are making sure that we continue evolving and moving the direction in what they expect from us. We're not letting the fans tell us what to do, but we're listening to them and understanding how they're consuming content. And, if we keep doing that, which we have, I think we'll just continue evolving and giving them more of what they want. And inside of that comes the monetization. Interestingly enough, even on the TNT Sports side, when it comes to something like NASCAR or Roland Garros, social across the ecosystem has become louder when we look at our linear production as well.
Oh,
And
interesting.
so understanding what's expected of us based on our historical relationship through other sports and being able to give the fans more of that through the different sports has been critical for
I
us.
mean, obviously with TNT, you can't go a day without talking about Chuck, Shaq, and Ernie, and Kenny and
True.
those guys, and all the tweets that show up on the broadcast feed where people are commenting in real time on what's being discussed on the show.
True. Yes.
There is
They
a
are
lot of feedback
beloved.
loop.
Yes.
That's awesome. Look, I mean, maybe taking a step back and just like tracing your journey over the last 15 years, you've worked at storied brands through your life from GQ to Bleacher
Yeah.
Report. What was the spark for you in terms of tying brands to fandom and digital first, communities led? You've sort of seen that shift. I would argue that in the media world, Bleacher Report, House of Highlights, TNT has always been one step ahead of everyone else, specifically in the legacy media world in terms of new forms of fandom. And I'm curious, you've seen that journey. I'd love to hear some inside baseball from your perspective in that sense.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think I have worked at some incredible brands,
Yeah.
world renowned brands, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I realized early on was the cultural relevance of a brand and the importance of that brand to the fans or consumers and the culture at large as far as shaping the conversation. What has attracted me to those working at those brands specifically is then understanding the business of that monetization opportunity behind the cultural relevance that pushes a brand forward. And, joining Bleacher Report and House of Highlights, listen, it was a calculated risk
Yeah.
because it was trying to take the fandom that, yes, existed on Bleacher Report, but drive the cultural conversation in an age of digital transformation that while we had thought had sort of happened and was happening, when I look back now 7 years ago, I'm
Yeah.
like, "Dear God, nothing had happened at that point," you know?
Yeah.
So, it's been really fun. I mean, what is really fueling that, like, devotion to a brand is the emotion. It becomes really personal. It's part of someone's identity. and understanding that and respecting it in the form of a business. And, I think that media consumption on top of that then changes drastically. So, on one hand, you have to understand the technology that's at play. Then you have to understand the consumption habits of the consumer. And how do you tie those pieces together to deliver a product to an audience that is wanted before they know they want it?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I quickly learned and really appreciated at Bleacher, and I'm super proud to say it existed before I got there and it still flows through it today, is Bleacher's content team are fans of Bleacher Report. It's like built by the fan for the fan. And I think you feel that when you're on our app or on our O&O or consuming a piece of content that has gone viral outside of our ecosystem.
Yeah.
I think you really feel that, and that's part of Bleacher's specialness.
But I mean, honestly, I mean, even as a fan of Inside the NBA and Bleacher Report and House of Highlights, I mean, so many of our consumption habits having changed over the past decade. We hear about people follow more rather than watch kind of a thing. I don't necessarily look at it as a negative thing anymore. In the past, it felt like a disruption. This is not good, but I think it's been additive in the grand scheme of things. For the sports property holders, and now everyone is leaning into that power of social. I mean, Bleacher and,
Yes,
and House of Highlights, which also seemed like the perfect marriage at the time when it was done. I think
absolutely.
they were the pioneers in pushing that change, whether it was on the
Yeah,
app or on social in both places.
yeah. Yeah, for sure, and I agree with everything you said, and at the root of it, it's because a certain consumer fan base did not feel like they were being served,
Yeah. Yep.
right? And I think that's key to it, and it's why all these other brands, some of the most storied brand in the world who, back when I was at GQ would never have touched social, let alone us, really begging them to do digital, quite frankly. And now they're all over social because they understand that their consumers who are our fans, they exist everywhere.
Yeah. You
You
need to meet
just
where
you
they
have
are.
to correct, exactly.
Yeah.
And Bleacher was an early pioneer of that. And TNT Sports was in its own way with the development of Ernie and Shaq and Chuck, right? Like they understood that having these people behind a desk and sort of taking that wall down between them and the audience and therefore creating fans of those personalities themselves, let alone the sport, was a key to the success.